Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're getting straight to the heart of two potential futures for Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the 2025 manifestos from the People's Action Party, the PAP, and the Singapore People's Party, the SPP, right here.
That's right. Excerpts, specifically.
Exactly, excerpts. And our mission, really, is clear. Compare their visions point by point. We want to dig into which one, just based on these documents we have, might offer, let's say, a stronger path towards a better Singapore.
Yeah, precisely. We're looking at the PIP's changed world, fresh team, new resolve, securing a brighter future for you.
Quite a title.
And the SPP's Manifesto 2025, it is time. So we'll be looking at their stated goals, their proposed approaches, trying to get a clear sense of their priorities from these texts.
Okay, let's kick things off with the opening pitches then. Lawrence Wong, PAP Secretary General, he starts by emphasizing, well, keeping Singapore's success story going.
Continuity.
Yes, continuity, talks about a refreshed team, the need for public support, and he positions their manifesto as sort of a response to hopes and concerns from Singaporeans gathered through things like Forward Singapore.
Right.
Their core promise seems to be serving the people, building on, their long track record. He also mentions the changing world, SG60, as context, yeah. And specifically calls out cost of living, jobs, and homes as key concerns they're focused on.
And what's interesting there is that anchoring in history, isn't it? Over 60 years. It sets a tone experience, stability.
Definitely.
Mentioning Forward Singapore suggests, well, an attempt to show they're listening. But, as you said, based on these excerpts, the detailed policies stemming from that aren't laid out right here in the opening.
Okay, now let's pivot to the SPP. Their manifesto, It Is Time. It revolves around accountability, commitment, and empathy.
ACE. Yeah.
Steve Chia, their Secretary General, invites people to see their proposals as tackling today's challenges, building on their 2020 ideas, but with fresh thinking. Their stated aims: fostering a sustainable, equitable society, a more democratic, inclusive Singapore, and that "It is time" tagline just keeps popping up, a clear signal for change.
It is. And it's worth remembering their background, too. Founded in '94, Mr. Chiam See-tung's legacy.
Right.
Steve Chia taking over in 2019, former NCMP. It frames their position.
So the contrast in the opening is quite stark, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The SPP's It Is Time, the ACE values, suggest a need for a different direction. They talk about evolving challenges, which you could read as a critique of the status quo.
Okay, so how do these visions actually stack up when we get down to the issues? Let's go theme by theme, look at key concerns, and see what actual solutions each party is putting forward in these specific excerpts.
Sounds good.
Let's start with a big one: economy and cost of living.
Right. The PAP's approach, under a dynamic economy opportunities for all, well, it acknowledges the cost of living challenges. It expresses commitment to overcoming them.
But the how isn't really detailed here.
Not in the excerpts we're looking at now. It's more of a statement of intent at this stage.
Okay. Now, the SPP. They tackle this head-on under economic stability and fairness, specifically mentioning rising costs of living, inflation.
And they list concrete proposals.
Yeah, very specific. Yearly balanced budget linked to CDC voucher distribution more for lower-income folks. A GST freeze, but with specific criteria tied to the budget deficit.
A conditional freeze, interesting.
An expansion of the living wage policy. And progressive taxation, higher income tax for the top 2%, and bringing back estate duty.
What immediately jumps out, I think, is that level of detail from the SPP compared to the PP's broader statement in these sections.
Definitely.
The SPP offers actual mechanisms, the CDC voucher link, the GST freeze trigger, specific tax changes, all aimed directly at cost of living and potentially inequality.
Right. Let's move to employment, job security. The PP mentions opportunities for all under their dynamic economy theme. So clearly jobs are a focus. But again, the specific policies aren't detailed in these bits we have.
Right. Whereas the SPT has a dedicated section, employment and job security, tackling job insecurity, unemployment.
And their proposals.
Quite a few. Local hiring incentives, tax breaks for firms prioritizing Singaporean PMETs.
Professionals, managers, executives, technicians.
Correct. And local hiring quotas linked to a raised local qualifying salary. They also mentioned legal protections, like codifying TF guidelines.
Making those guidelines law, essentially.
That seems to be the suggestion. Plus, flexible retirement, getting rid of the statutory retirement age. Reviewing the CECA agreement, reducing quotas for S-Pass and employment passes, and encouraging automation for a higher skill economy.
Wow, okay. Again, a much more detailed list of actions from the SPP here.
It is. They're outlining specific policy levers, incentives, regulations, potentially reviewing international agreements, not just stating the goal.
So if we're thinking about that stronger manifesto question based purely on these excerpts,
Well, based on the detail provided here, the SPP's proposals on economy and jobs suggest a more, shall we say, interventionist approach. Specific policies aimed at redistribution, prioritizing local jobs.
while the PAP excerpts offer the commitment, but less of the how.
Exactly, at least in the sections we're comparing.
Okay, let's look at housing and retirement security. The PPP highlights more affordable public housing, more choices for Singaporeans, and for seniors, financial security and peace of mind.
Important themes.
Very. But, like before, the excerpts we have don't detail the specific policies. They acknowledge the issues, homes, retirement, but the solutions aren't spelled out here.
Now, the SPP, under Housing and Retirement Security, focuses on housing affordability, retirement adequacy.
And they have specifics.
They do. A single citizen HDB scheme, lowering the minimum BTOR sale age for singles to 30.
That would be significant for many.
Yes. Also, expanding SIRS, the Selective En Bloc Redevelopment Scheme, to cover all estates nearing lease expiry.
All estates. That's a big proposal addressing lease decay fears.
It is. And finally, a gradual ethnic quota phase-out, a 5-year pilot program to relax those quotas.
Again, quite distinct, targeted proposals addressing known issues, singles housing access, lease decay, ethnic quota challenges.
Precisely. So while the PAP mentions affordability and security as goals, the SPP, in these excerpts, puts forward concrete plans to tackle them. That SIRS proposal especially is quite bold.
Let's touch on family support and birth rates. The PPP excerpts we reviewed don't seem to explicitly cover this.
Not in the sections provided, no theme or specific proposals listed here.
Okay. The SPP, however, does have a theme. Family support and birth rates, aiming at improving birth rates.
And they suggest how. Second-child housing incentives grants for upgrading homes.
So, encouraging that second child.
It seems so. And a third-child benefit, either buying private property without ABSD or getting a bigger HDB BTO grant, plus increased IVF subsidies.
Right, supporting fertility treatments more.
So another clear difference in these excerpts. The SPP explicitly targets boosting birth rates with financial and housing incentives.
Which isn't present in the PAP sections we have.
Correct. Again, it might be elsewhere in their full document, but based solely on these texts, the SPP shows a direct policy focus here.
Okay, governance and democratic freedom. The PAP mentions a more united team, a stronger Singapore. You could argue that relates to governance.
Indirectly, perhaps, unity.
But no specific proposals for democratic reform or transparency in these excerpts?
Whereas the SPP has a whole theme, governance and democratic freedom, focusing on political freedom, transparency, democracy.
And their ideas here.
They're quite substantial. Proportional representation in Parliament.
A big structural change.
Huge. A freedom of information law. Easing defamation laws. A yearly 2% budget cut for all ministries.
Across the board.
Fixed election years and dates. And an independent elections commission.
These are major potential reforms to the political system. More pluralism, transparency, separation of powers. That seems to be the aim.
Absolutely. And thinking again about which manifesto seems stronger based on these proposals, the SPP is directly proposing significant changes to how politics and government operate.
A clear bid for systemic reform.
Very clear.
What about education and youth well-being? Again, the PAP excerpts don't seem to have specific themes or proposals here.
Not listed in the provided sections. The SPP, however, has education and youth well-being, addressing youth education system and mental pressures.
Okay, what are they suggesting?
Things like personalized learning via smaller class sizes, a modern curriculum focusing on AI, skills-based reasoning, less exam pressure, more vocational paths.
Addressing the academic stress concerns.
Seems like it. Also, expanded mental health support in schools and communities, allowing CPF use for overseas degrees, with safeguards, and lowering the voting age to 18.
So tackling stress, future skills, mental health, and even civic engagement.
Yes, it touches on several hot-button issues for young people and the education system.
Right. Healthcare and mental wellness next. The PAP mentions affordable healthcare, better health.
A worthy goal.
But again, no specific policies detailed in these excerpts.
Okay. The SPP's theme is healthcare and mental wellness, addressing healthcare costs, accessibility, mental health support.
And their proposals include?
Subsidies for telehealth access, Expanding Medisave use higher limits for preventive care and mental health.
Integrating mental health more.
Yes, and enhanced elder care support subsidies for aging in place, a universal cap on out-of-pocket costs, integrating mental health into polyclinics and even NS unpaid mental health leave, and a focus on rehabilitation for offenders with mental disorders, possibly easing mandatory treatment orders.
That's quite comprehensive, targeting costs, access, and really foregrounding mental health support.
It is. The integration aspect particularly seems quite significant in these proposals.
Let's look at sustainable public transport. Anything from the PAP in these excerpts?
Doesn't seem to be a specific theme or proposal listed here.
Okay. And the SPP?
They have sustainable public transport, addressing public transportation challenges, Green Singapore.
And their ideas.
Heavy investment in MRT maintenance for better reliability. Subsidized travel, higher subsidies for low-income and silver support recipients, and pushing for a faster green transition, aiming for a fully electric public bus fleet by 2033.
So, hitting reliability, affordability, and the green agenda.
That appears to be the focus.
Yeah.
Yes. Maintenance, targeted help, and accelerating electrification.
Okay, final theme. Social cohesion and national identity. The PAP has a more united team, a stronger Singapore, suggests the goal.
But again, the how isn't detailed in these excerpts.
Right. The SPP's related theme covers social welfare, inequality, aging population support, national service debates, under social cohesion and national identity.
Broad area.
What are their specific proposals here?
Implementing a minimum wage, they mentioned $1,500 a month as an example living wage. Wealth redistribution via increased tax reliefs for lower income, higher top-tier taxes, boosted CDC vouchers for the needy.
Tackling inequality directly?
Seems so. Also, caregiver support, paid parent care leave, subsidies for elder-friendly housing or retirement villages, and NS reform, reducing the duration to 18 months, raising NS allowances to 80% of regular pay.
Again, quite substantial proposals targeting inequality, support for caregivers and seniors, and the ongoing NS discussion.
Yeah, the focus seems to be on creating a more equitable social safety net and addressing structural issues around wealth and national service.
Okay. So we've gone through the themes based on these excerpts. Let's circle back to that initial question. Based only on these specific proposals outlined here, which manifesto appears stronger in offering a vision for a better Singapore?
Well, if we're looking purely at the depth and breadth of the proposed solutions presented in these specific texts,
Yes, strictly based on what's written here.
then the Singapore People's Party Manifesto definitely lays out a more detailed and comprehensive set of policy proposals. They cover a wider range of issues identified as concerns, cost of living, jobs, housing, governance, social welfare, with concrete, specific suggestions.
That's fair. The PAP manifesto, at least in these excerpts, paints the broader vision, emphasizes their commitment, their track record,
Right, the stability argument.
but it doesn't provide that same level of specific policy detail that the SPP offers in these particular sections. It's more about the overall direction and reassurance.
Exactly. So if stronger means more tangible, detailed proposed solutions within these documents, then based on this comparison, the SPP Manifesto presents a more specific platform addressing numerous challenges with concrete ideas.
However, and this is crucial for you listening, the PAP's emphasis on experience, on stability, on that proven track record, even if the policies aren't detailed here, that's a huge factor for many voters, isn't it?
Absolutely. Strength isn't just about the number of bullet points. It depends entirely on your priorities. What do you value most?
A detailed plan for a potentially significant change, like the SPP seems to offer in these excerpts.
Or the promise of continued stability and perhaps more gradual, incremental progress, which is the feeling you get from the PAP excerpts.
Right. So summarizing the key differences from these texts. Both want a better Singapore, obviously. But the SPP in these excerpts gives a much more granular how with specific policies. The PAP offers the overarching vision, the commitment, the experience, but less policy detail in these parts.
Which really brings it back to you, the listener. What does a better Singapore actually look like in your mind? Is it built on that foundation of proven stability with careful adjustments?
Or does it need a more significant policy shift, a more detailed roadmap for change to tackle the issues you see as most pressing?
You know, the level of detail in a manifesto can signal readiness, vision, but it's only one piece of the puzzle, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's why we really encourage you, don't stop here. Seek out the full manifestos from both the PAP and the SPP, and other parties too.
Read them.
Dig deeper than these excerpts. Think about the feasibility, the potential impact of these ideas. Talk about them with others.
Understanding these different visions is just so crucial for making informed choices about the country's future.
So what parts of these manifestos, even just the excerpts, resonated most with you? What questions did they raise? Hopefully this deep dive is just the start of you forming a really informed perspective.